I am very excited to bring in our guest today. Been looking forward to catching up with him for a bit and very excited to catch up with one of the three co hosts of the Surviving Snyder podcast. Of course, you know him from Survivor, The Edge of Extinction, and he is another male member of this panel who has been voted out of the three-person or three tribes. It's Rick Devens. Rick, I blew it. I blew it. I was practicing my intro.
Rob,
But you and I share that in common. The rare men that have been voted out of three tribes.
yeah, and I think pretty progressive of me to do that within the top 4 players voted out. Just trying to do my part to,
Mm-hmm.
to help out the cause.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel for everyone voted out early who doesn't get to go to the edge of extinction. It's like, ooh, that's so much of Survivor is luck and being unlucky sometimes, and I got the luck, and I just feel I truly feel for them that they don't get that chance.
Yeah. Well, Rick, I went back. I was watching some of your season today to get ready for this episode. And I will say,
What a pro.
first off, that look, hey, we're here like 2 years into the new era. We can look back at the edge of extinction. Oh, like remember the quaint old days of the edge of extinction before things got really crazy with twists. That we can look back to the edge of extinction. Another thing, I feel like that it doesn't get talked about enough. Edge of extinction, I feel like pretty rad logo.
100%. Not nearly as kind of busy as the 44
I almost
logo.
called it a bitchin logo. I said, I'm going to walk that back.
I would have gone with that 100%, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
It is cool. And one thing I love about the logo is it was like a riddle. Like they showed us everything that was going to happen
Yeah.
to us, and we just looked at it and didn't know.
Not to start off the show with a complaint about the new era, but if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see like they're phoning it in now with the logos. Like, okay, we don't have a theme, and it's just like, okay, let's just like whatever. Like let's Dolly Mini, give us some Survivor logos. Okay, fine.
It's like we
What does
need
this
some
mean?
bold numbers
What does
and
this
some
mean?
silhouettes
Evocative
of
of
people with
nothing.
torches.
What is this? Like they're looking in a tunnel? Like they even have cool stuff in this season of a sword, a shield, chess pieces. None of this is in the logo.
Gargoyles.
Gargoyle. Any of this stuff.
Yeah. Astronauts.
They have
I think
a
Carson's
bird cage. They have all the stuff that they would need to make a cool logo. I'm like,
yeah,
whatever.
No. Trick Rice would have made an amazing logo.
For sure he would. For sure he would.
But
yeah.
he never phones it in.
No. Rick, so I got a lot of Survivor stuff to talk to you about, but I saw that you have a lot of stuff going on, including that I saw that you are back and getting another degree.
Channeling my Rodney Dangerfield,
Yeah.
back to school. I am back in school. I'm going for a master's degree. I have not left my full-time job. So it's a lot, but I work at Middle Georgia State University, and that's where I'm getting my degree. And because it's a state university here in Georgia, I get a tuition assistance program as an employee. So it's like I have to do it, or I'm not taking advantage.
Okay, and could you talk a little bit about the degree that you're getting, the master's you're getting?
Yeah, I'm getting it in public relations.
Yeah,
my first class has been data storytelling. And Rob,
I saw you with the picture of the book. Yeah.
17 years, bro.
What is data storytelling?
Data storytelling it's basically making good graphs and good visuals.
Mhm.
Like it really digs into what's necessary, what's not necessary, like how the brain interprets information, and how to take like a lot of complicated data, like all your social media analytics, maybe in my job, and display it in a way that's like compelling and makes an argument for whatever it is you're trying to get across.
Okay. Well, I think that, public relations is a very interesting field. And I'm sure that there's probably lots of ways that there is overlap with playing the game of Survivor. No?
Just like every job. But yeah, there's a lot. It's what you want people
what
to
part of the
interpret.
PR campaign are we at right now, Rick?
I think we're at the part of the PR campaign where you really want to put it out there that you're strong, that you're easy to work with, that you just want to get the tribe through to the next stage of the game without going to tribal council, and that you're the right person for that. Put up a billboard, put it on social media, get it on the web page, and then call the media and say, we have people that are willing to talk to you about how strong I am as a contributor to this tribe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And easier said than done.
Oh,
As we both
yeah.
can talk about.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Now, Rick, I also saw
And much easier said than done if you're like a small person who it's hard to, you know, project strength and those stereotypical things that go along with strength.
Yeah. So let's touch on what's been going on in this most recent episode of Survivor. We saw Claire be the latest player voted out of the game. Did you have any thoughts on Claire?
I did have thoughts on Claire. I think like a lot of Survivor fans that Claire was going to go really deep in the game. Like
So
she
did
was a
I.
big presence pregame. She was a really fun presence on social media, and they showed a lot of her. So I thought this person's going to go deep, and I was sad to see her go. I was really torn. I think that's my favorite tribe. I looked at tribal council and it's like I did not want any of them to go, especially Josh. So I was really torn, but I didn't want Claire to go at all. And I thought she had the makings of a really great Survivor player. She just happens to be very slight.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll get into the whole, challenge thing.
Sure. Now, you said especially Josh. Do you have a personal connection with Josh? Because I feel like that we have not seen a lot from him on the show. So I'm interested to know why you are he's such a favorite for you.
I think he's Georgia based, so that makes
Yes.
me like him a lot.
Okay.
He seems in pregame he was someone I'm drawn to. Like he has such a great backstory, almost like a similar to Daniel Strunk, who I was a fan of. My doppelganger. He and Josh Wigler. Even though the three of us look nothing alike, really. But Josh just seems like a really cool guy. Plus, he's very physically fit. He looks like he can do really well in the game, and I'm kind of rooting for him. I was drawn to him in the preseason. I was drawn to Bruce in the preseason. I was drawn to Helen in the preseason. It's like I've lost so many of those people.
Okay, but not Josh yet.
No, and Helen was my winner pick. And now
Yeah.
that she's gone, like I was asked, who's your winner pick now after last night's episode? And Josh is my guy. I think even though he's been underrepresented to this point, I think he's going to be the dude.
Did you think it was going to be Claire going out this week?
Oh no. I mean, late in the episode, I did. Once we were heading to tribal, I thought it looks like it might be Claire, but not until that point. I kept waiting for something else to come in.
Rick, it wasn't until she stood up and played the shot in the dark that I even thought that I even entertained the idea that Claire was going home.
The only reason is because that darn Dalton Ross posted about how they hadn't shown Josh's backstory at all. And the fact that they've shown Carson like 8 times, I was like, of course they would.
Yeah. But Rick, I thought we got nothing from Helen last week. So I said, I think they're going like full Australian Survivor on this cast.
Which you mean that they were going to like,
hey,
turn on
okay,
Helen,
we're only going to show you our stars, and then everybody else don't even worry about these people.
Yeah, that is Australian Survivor to a T. Also, referencing Australian Survivor, credit to US Survivor and the producers that if you look at Tribal Council, the way they sat people, Josh and Claire were on this side of Helen and everyone else was on that. It didn't give anything away if you're there. You can't do anything. Whereas Australian Survivor telegraphs it to a key at Tribal Council exactly what the breakdown of the tribe is.
Yeah. They don't worry, Rick. They don't do anything in US Survivor that they do on Australian Survivor. In fact, I think they go out of their way to not do anything that they do on Australian Survivor.
I think that's probably
I
fair.
think
Yeah.
that's true.
I mean, if we're going to get to the pointy end of the argument, I think you're right.
For sure. Okay. So yeah, this Soka tribe is pretty interesting because, we had all of this dynamics with, okay, Claire was sitting out of the challenges. Do you feel like that her sitting out of the challenges in any way impacted this? Because I feel like that the show tried to draw a connection between, hey, oh, really? You're sitting out again? Really? But if she is not a great challenge performer, wouldn't going into the challenges be worse for the tribe if they felt like that she's like, it's not like she's insisting, hey, put me in, coach, I'm ready, put me in the challenge, and she's making them lose. Like, they lost with her on the bench. It's almost like that if your beloved Commanders lose and Taylor Heineke is, now the now departed Taylor Heineke is on the bench while Carson Wentz is blowing the game. This is oh, we got to cut Taylor Heineke.
Which is, of course, the exact opposite of how we feel. We're like, we got to get Heineke in the game.
Right. It's like, hey, with the most popular player in town is the backup quarterback, right?
I think
Claire who's costing them these challenges? Get Claire in there.
Exactly. And I think Claire was in a really tough position. It's like you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And of course, Danny and people who are strong are going to use that as an argument, whether they even believe it or not.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's like I compare it to Julie on our season, whereas Julie was on the Kama tribe. And because our tribe was awful, they always had extra people. Yes. So they always looked at Julie, who was very small. She's a mother of two, and they're asking her to sit, but every time you could tell she was ticked off about it. Like most survivors, she wants to do the challenges. Like, that's part of the dream, I think.
Yeah.
So the fact that she's ticked off, it's like you can't hold that against her anymore. Yes. But if she goes in and she calls the tribe, then she's a much bigger target than sitting out.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe it was a mistake for Claire to be so willing to be sitting out of the challenge, where it almost seemed like that? And again, maybe this is just from the way that, Jeff's Matt chat with her went, where it sort of seems like that Claire was okay with sitting out of the challenge, where maybe does it sort of like become part of the narrative? Oh, she's not willing to give her all for the tribe because she's willing to sit out. That maybe even if you are like want to sit out, it's almost like that the check is on the table and you have to at least pretend to reach for it, even though somebody else is. You don't want to pick up the check, but it's like you gotta like do the move of and she sat there and didn't go reach for the check.
Survivor's a game known for analogies, and that was a perfect one because that is where it's at. It's like, could Claire have saved herself if she had play acted that, like, I want to be a part of the challenge? And probably not. Yeah. But I do think that was the move, like, at least because then when you make that argument at Final Tribal that, like, we all have strengths. You didn't give me a chance to show mine.
I'm dying to get in there.
Exactly. As opposed to the argument of like, there are other strengths, but I didn't, take the opportunity to demand that you look at what my strength is and put me on the puzzle or put me in this position. So I think that's tough. But I also see why she would do that. Like, even if either that's really how she feels and it's awesome that she's being herself, or it's like a defense mechanism and it's like, I'm going to take myself out of it before I'm the last pick.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this much. One thing I love about Claire and respect about Claire is I would have wilted so quickly under the gaze of Daddy Jeff Probst. The second he called me out for sitting, I'd have been like, guys, I cannot sit again.
Yeah.
Like, I do not want to disappoint him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially after, like, he gave her a very pointed, after the last one, like, Claire, you're sitting out again. Is that a volunteer or was it a tribe decision? And she's like, it's both. And he gave her a, huh.
Yeah.
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 And there's a lot of people giving Jeff a hard time for that. I want Spicy Jeff back. So it's
Mhm.
not that I think Claire necessarily deserved that, but I want Jeff to put everyone's feet to the fire and give everyone a hard time about everything. So I am all about this. Like,
Okay.
let's bring Jeff, who criticizes the players, back.
Okay. All right. I mean, look, I think it's going to be good TV and certainly a tribal council. I'm all for more of that. Okay. Hudson has a question for us about the sit outs. He asked the question of how much of an effect did Jeff's comments about Claire sitting out have on the tribe? Do you think that Danny would have pushed as much for Claire's vote out if Jeff had said nothing? So do you feel like that in some sort of universe where, okay, that Claire sat out of the first 3 challenges and it just sort of like it happened, but it was not observed by Jeff and commented on by Jeff. Do you think that that would have been as big of a deal in the eyes of the tribe?
I definitely do. I think that the way that the tribes are set up now, like, it's important to be strong, it's important to win. And I just think on Survivor, you're looking for anything to put the target on someone else. Like, if Danny was close to Claire, if he was as close to Claire as he is to Helen, I don't think this would be an issue. You know, he wouldn't bring it up. He's
Yeah.
not close with Claire. So it's like, here's something I'll use against you. We weren't close with Reem, so we were like, she moved our stuff. It's like the stupidest things are weaponized on Survivor. And this is kind of a stupid thing, but of course it's going to be weaponized.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about the dynamics of this Soka tribe? Because I feel like that we've, seen the story of what's going on we've seen like 2 things and like an A story and a B story of the Soka tribe, but I don't know if it necessarily explains the power dynamics and the structure of this tribe. We've seen sort of the A story from this tribe has been Matt and Franny. They're like, will they or won't they? Like, okay, they're 2 dorky magnets and they have a thing. Also, Danny is running around crazy and doing all sorts of, idle shenanigans. But we have not really gotten a sense of like what the power structure is. Rick, do you have a sense of what the overall like structure of where the alliances are on Soka after last night?
I think I do after last night. I think based on what we saw, the decision came down to Helen telling us, I think I'm closest to Danny of anyone in the game.
Heidi,
Heidi, I'm sorry. Heidi
you've
telling
got
us.
Helen on the
Oh,
brain.
I
Your
know.
winner pick.
Helen Lee. Oh, my favorite. No, Heidi saying that she thinks Danny's her closest person in the game.
Mhm.
So, and then she ends up going with Danny. So I think there's your power duo. And then Matt and Franny, like Franny clearly wanted to go in another direction. Matt was all on board with that. But we also saw a conversation where Danny and Franny and Heidi were all there together. And both Danny and Franny said, listen, Heidi, tell us which way you're going so that we can stick together, so that we can have this semblance of a together tribe, even though we're not doing what everyone wants to do. So I think the power last night lied in it was Danny's decision. Like Danny didn't, I think Heidi wanted to keep Claire. Danny wasn't that flexible. So Heidi went with Danny and all the cards fell. But now that Claire's gone, it's kind of a 2-2, like clearly Matt and Franny. And I think now clearly Heidi and Danny. And now, so Josh is with Danny. Sorry, I'm losing my own guy, Josh. And the fact that Josh is with Danny, I think that puts them in the power spot, especially since, Franny and Matt have already kind of put this target on themselves.
Yeah, I agree with just about everything you said. Heidi, I think she, in a lot of ways, was a big swing last night. Where ultimately, if she votes with potentially with Franny and with Claire, okay, that gets 3, and they're able to take Josh out. But I think that for Heidi, she mentioned in the episode that I'm closest with Danny, which unfortunately, we really haven't seen a scene of Heidi and Danny really talking. For Heidi's closest ally, it'd be nice if we got that a little
Yeah.
bit in like a scene and not just as like a throwaway piece of dialogue. Okay, this is my closest person, although she's
Especially
not.
since that's kind of a unique combo.
Right. And especially also because that she's not particularly close with Josh. I think she was closer with Claire than she was with Josh, but I think that she's like, well, I don't want to risk alienating my close ally in Danny. And Danny really feels like, okay, he is running Soka now at this point where Heidi was the swing vote, but basically, I think in some ways, I think she kind of gave away her power last night by, okay, I'm going to go ahead and side with Danny. Now, Danny has Heidi and Josh with him, and Matt still doesn't have a vote. So, where's Heidi going to go? What's she going to do? So, if Danny and Heidi are still together, plus Danny like has all this business with the fake idol and has Matt's number with the fake idol. So, I think Danny is really the king of Soka.
I totally agree. And especially, I mean, last night showed that their focus is on winning out till some sort of swap or relief. And he's a really strong guy. So I think Danny put himself in a really great spot.
Yeah.
He can breathe with Danny a little bit because he's gotten himself some space.
But I think that the episodes have given us the perception of, oh, Danny's at the bottom. Danny's in trouble. Danny needs the idol. Danny, Danny even said, hey, I got a heat on me. I asked Claire in the exit interview this morning, like, was there heat on Danny that he needed to go through all this trouble to really get the blame pointed at somebody else with this idol situation? And she said, no. Nobody was thinking about Danny. Nobody thought he was had the idol.
It is the people with the idols are really going out of their way to make things happen that don't necessarily need to happen in more than one tribe. That's interesting. Yeah. We hadn't seen much of Green because they'd been winning, but definitely last night was eye-opening. Like as you said, all we'd heard about them was Fran and Maddie, and they have my heart, of course. But I don't know where we go from here because I don't know how connected to Danny Josh is. Like Josh seems kind of a little bit in Franny and Matt's camp as well. So
yes, he
it could
seems
go
like he has
crazy.
a little bit of a tight relationship with Matt. Like he was talking about, okay, don't worry, we're gonna vote out Claire. You won't have to play your idol. He was like celebrating with Matt when he had the idol. So maybe there is like a little bit of something there. Rick, talk to me a little bit about Franny and Matt.
uh Matt, I felt a little bad for when he was talking about the breakup. Like, I think most of us have been through a bad breakup at some point. And it's like, that's tough. When he talked about the dog, how he also lost the dog,
Yeah.
my heart shattered for the guy. And I'm now rooting for Matt in the game of Survivor, but more importantly, because it seems a lot more important to him, in the game of love. Uh, I'm a little confused by everything happening, but what doesn't seem confusing is that they like each other on the show. If they're not together, everything happening outside of the show, including stuff Jeff talks about on social media, is really weird. But yeah, they seem great. It's like what we wanted for Christian and Gabby to be, and they obviously weren't because Christian was in a committed relationship with Emily, who's
Right.
wonderful. But like Survivor had to be so excited, like, oh, this is real. This is what we wanted.
This
Yeah.
is happening. This is not a drill. This is happening. So yeah, the Matt and Franny, that is going to be very interesting to follow throughout the season. Do you feel like that Claire going out of the game and now, okay, Matt and Franny did not get their way at this tribal council, and now it's sort of like, okay, where this was not how I was seeing this tribe over the first two episodes, that they're now at the bottom. Do you think that being at the bottom of Soka, and I think that they probably can see it, right? That is this going to hey, let's slow this down a little bit. Like we got to worry about our game because that we are going to be having this relationship at Ponderosa if we're not playing our cards right. Or do you think that basically this is now that this pressure is going to only bring them closer together?
I think that there are just some bells that can't be unrung. Like they know they're together, and that it's just not going to happen. That people are going to all of a sudden think, oh, they'll turn against each other, no problem. And I'll compare it to the romance of my season, David Wright and I. We got way too close way too soon and made it so obvious. Like we only wanted to talk around Stephen King with each other. We just laughed at each other's jokes, and it was so obvious that we were a close duo. And you really can't undo that. Even when we went to a tribal post merge and voted differently, people like Ron and Julie thought it was planned because they knew how close we were. And it's like, no, it was a genuine disagreement, but you just can't unring that bell. I don't think there's anything that those two can do to get that target off them, that particular couple's target off of themselves.
Rick, I want to talk about everything that's going on with the fake idol. And this was a great week to talk to you because, of course, you had a lot going on with fake idols back in the Edge of Extinction. And we had 2 different fake idol storylines going on in the episode. Let me play a voicemail we got for this podcast that comes in from one of our listeners, Jesse.
Hi, Rob and Rick. My name is Jessie. I live in Connecticut and I adore you both. My question is, were you impressed with the way that Danny handled the fake immunity idol? And is there anything that you would have liked to have seen him do differently? Thanks.
Okay. Rick, there's so much to unpack.
Love those
about
Connecticut accents.
Yes, the classic Connecticut accent. So I would love to just pick your brain about this. First off, just in terms of like what Survivor is doing this season: birdcage, real idol. There's a key inside the key. There's a fake idol. The fake idols correspond to different idols at the other camps. What's your feeling on all of this?
So
before we talk specifically about
I absolutely hate to say this because this is not a person I respect, but I think Stephen Fishback might be right on this one.
Oh,
I'll give Gabby credit because she said it on RHAP first. I think that they're right that it's a mistake for production to put these high production value idols into the game because it just screws up the future of the game. Like I think it's going to be really fun this season, but then from here on out, you can't make plans around an idol because you have to assume there's a good chance it's fake. And I'll tell you this, like, I think one of the best moments you get in Survivor is when someone like, like overconfident Rick Devens or someone goes up and plays an idol, gives a smirk, and then it's like, this is fake.
That never happened. That never happened.
It didn't happen to me.
I saw that happen to some other folks.
Exactly.
And I saw that you went up there with an expired advantage menu that you knew might not be for real. And then you flipped it around.
Yes, that did happen. And I'm going to reference that in a second. But so I think these fake idols are a mistake because it's now like if I'm ever going up to play an idol, I'm going up and I'm like, hey guys, this is probably not real. I hope it, you're just going to downplay. You're never going to have that big moment because you're trying to do damage control just in case.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of Danny, I almost want to do Danny and Matt together. I feel like if you're going to make someone play a fake idol, there should be a good reason. Like just doing it to do it, like Ron was doing to me. There was no reason for Ron to do it to me. And it's like, I think it would have come across bad. I think it's like, why are you doing this? Da, da, da. On my season, I did it to Julie and Lauren, but my reasoning was A, they'd been after me the whole game. And B, I'd been on the wrong side of a bunch of votes. Like I had everything going for me with the jury, except you didn't know what was happening in the game. So I was like, at this tribal council, I'm the only one who knew what was going on. I had them totally wrapped around, I was in complete control of everything. That was my reasoning for it. These guys, I'm like, you're going to put yourself in a bad position when this guy's not going to your plan because they think they have an idol because Jamie thinks she has an idol,
Yeah. So, Rick, I went back and I was watching some of your highlights from your season on YouTube. And in the business of making the fake idols, that it really came across as you were saying that, hey, everybody out here is dead tired, has no energy, but me making these fake idols and planting them and then watching them, this is energizing me. I have way more energy by doing this than these other people. So I did think that was an interesting reason. And I'm not the biggest proponent of like all this fake idol chicanery, but I thought that was interesting, Rick.
I do think these players like Matt and Danny, like when you do something tricky, when you do something that in your head, like this is going to be on TV, my family's going to see this. It's like, I've got agency in the game. I'm making moves. I absolutely think that's energizing. 26 days, you haven't really got to worry about energy. No one on my season was tired at 26 days. I wasn't making idols then. That was like day 30. But yeah, I do think making these moves, anytime you're going to bed at night and you're like, I did something that I think is going to make the show, at least for me, like I thought about that. And that was so I was like, yeah.
Now we saw the two different approaches to the fake idol. Danny had the fake idol that was given him by production. Matt went about it the old fashioned way and created a fake idol. I guess he found the real idol and then went about making a fake idol after that. They kind of yada yada you making your fake idols in the Edge of Extinction, right? We sort of just got like a flashback to you saying, oh, but recently I've made 2 fake idols, right? It was like a flashback.
Yeah, it was. And even the idol I show on the actual show is not one of the fake idols that anyone found. It was a totally different one that I brought home with me.
So at what point did you start making fake idols, and then how did you go about making them?
So I'm trying to remember when I made my first fake idol. I made my first fake idol before I'd ever found an idol. The only idol I had was when I came back from the Edge of Extinction and David got half and I got half. And that was like made by production, like fake emerald, like carved, could not replicate it. I actually tried, and I have the worst looking idol ever, painted green. It's the top of the coffee jar we had. It's all I tried to carve a Japanese or Chinese symbol in it that had gotten off the tea container. It was really bad. But then I went and I was like, okay, I'm going to make an idol. And I'd found some beads. And I was surprised that Matt convinced Jamie with the beads off the bag, because in our season, the second someone ripped beads off your bag, which everyone did, people were like, someone took my beads. So it was a call out, like everyone has my beads and we all had the same beads. So to look for it. But I had found beads hidden on the island in Lassu, like beads from maybe seasons ago. I don't know. Little ones.
You found JT's hidden immunity idol.
It's possible. It was just like 3 beads that were on a rope. So I snuck away and I made the best looking idol I could out of the shell and this jewel. And it looked okay, but I was like, it's got to be high production value to be good. And then I found an idol and it was a piece of garbage. Like it looked like crap. And I was like, this is so much easier than I thought. So then when Gavin won the reward where he went on a helicopter tour with Lauren and Victoria, I think.
Okay.
Aurora and Julie and I went back to camp, and Aurora and Julie were not happy that they weren't picked. So they went out to sleep on the beach, not to sleep, but to sunbathe and talk and strategize against me. And I went and ran.
And they went through your bag, right? Was this at the same time?
They had done that before.
Oh, okay.
They had done that before.
Yes.
Or I guess they hadn't done that before. I don't know. But yeah, so that I made both idols then, but I did not hide those idols till much later, till after I found the final idol of the game. That's when I went and I hid them so that I could try to control that tribal.
And what was especially convincing with your fake idols that you hid was that you had gathered enough real idols where you had played them at previous tribal councils, where you had held on to your receipts, the parchment, to wrap your fake idols. And then including, I think the one that Lauren found she found a clue to find where the fake idol was, which I don't think anybody else has ever done that before, right?
Yeah, and that one was fun because that one, that I had
the one that was you had to climb up to the roof of the shelter,
exactly, to get it down. And they don't show that when I'm re-hiding that one, I actually have to climb the tree again. It's while they're down on the beach. I climb and I do hide it, but I didn't hide it at that point for anyone to find. Like that was my backup plan, that if I got to
Yeah.
a point where I didn't win immunity and I didn't have an idol, I was going to, in front of everyone, pull it down from the shelter. And then at tribal be like, I had this clue. See, I couldn't have recreated this.
Yeah.
But I didn't need it. So then I hid the clue and Lauren found it and proved why I needed to climb in the middle of the night, because I caught her finding it unbeknownst to her.
So, Rick, one of the questions on my mind this week is the utility of a fake idol not particularly useful in the early stages of the game, but does it become increasingly more useful at the later stages of the game?
I think it does become more useful in the later stages of the game, but I'm really not sure how useful it is ever. Like
Yes.
even mine weren't strategically that great, except that it showed that I had control at tribal, but it didn't do anything to change the votes or change, if I hadn't had my own idol that night, I'd have been gone. So it didn't help me in that sense. It just helped me show I knew something they didn't know. And I feel like in this case, like both Danny and Matthew, because they don't know who they're going to be working with necessarily, perhaps put speed bumps in their way. Like they might have made their games more difficult by having this fun.
That's what I'm saying, because I feel like that there may be a time and a place where these fake idols could have some utility, and I'm not even 100% sure of that. There could be a point later on in the game, but in the pre-merge game, when you're really trying to foster like these airtight relationships, for especially when we have no swap in these games, where potentially you're going to be with these people for literally 50% of this game, and then come into the merge, and then it's like, all right, like let's go. It's pretty much going to be some version of like your tribe versus like another with picking up people and trying to go the distance. Do you want to be sowing this much potential dissension in your ranks that these are the only people that you are going to get to work with for this first half of the game? Like, do you want to be potentially creating some of these problems?
Yeah. And I'll take the Matthew one specifically. Like there's so many ways it can blow up in your face. Jamie wants to work with you, for one thing. So I would think you'd want to get it in someone's hands
Plant
who
lady and
doesn't want
plant
to work with
daddy.
you. But it's like, so if she plays it and stays, I would think her mind immediately goes to, how did I find this idol? Oh yeah, Matthew took me right to it and pointed to it, basically. Like maybe that comes into her mind. Or maybe they make the merge and Matthew says, we need your vote. We need to do this. And Jamie goes, this is our move. Put all the votes on me. This is when we use the idol. How do you talk her out of that?
Right. Right. And in the case of Matt and Claire in this latest round, where from my exit interview with Claire, she maintained that, Matt, and we saw that Danny told her Matt is the vote. And she said that Matt was the vote up until the point where he found the idol. And then all of the sudden, Matt, by finding the fake idol in the game, ended up making himself like as they sometimes say, a useful idiot to Danny, where it's like Danny's like now like, well, I can't, that this is my mark. I can't lose Danny now because I've got this whole plan in the works of like, I need him in the game so I could dupe him with the idol later on. So that Danny, who, had maybe some sort of working relationship with Claire, kind of changes his plan midstream, because I have to now keep Matt in the game because I need to dupe him later.
Yeah, 100%.
By happenstance. It wasn't like, and we saw with at least with Matthew and Jamie, what Matthew did with the fake idol, like he led the horse to the water. Like this is exactly who I want. I want Jamie
Are there
to
worms
be the person
down there.
Yes, like let's go look for worms right here. She's like, what is this?
My mom was
my word.
My mom was like, does Jamie really not think about that? And I was like, maybe she did. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
I would think that would run through my mind. Like, wow, what a coincidence.
Yeah. But then we had ultimately here where you had Matt ultimately found the thing, and it could have been anybody. It could have been Josh. It could have been, one of his allies ultimately who found it. But Matt is the person that finds the lucky key, and now all of a sudden, now he ironically, it was a fake immunity idol, but potentially saved his game. It was for his all intents and purposes. It was a real immunity idol for him.
Yeah, it's so weird. And then you think about the next layer of this, which is that inheritance advantage or whatever. It's these people so believe what they have is real that Sarah could totally end up stealing fake things without ever being lied to about anything. It's going to be very complicated, and that's why it's kind of like, you know, even if production hadn't put fakes in, we'd have a fake in the game right now. Matthew made his own. So then production adds 3 fakes in, and it's just a lot. It's a lot.
I mean, yeah, we are really, again, and it's been fun, and it has been good TV, but I think that we can like hold 2 things in our hand of like, okay, this has been fun TV, but ultimately, like, are we creating problems for our players? And maybe the problems that cannot be solved in 42 minutes of television every week because your brain will melt.
Yeah. I totally forget who can't vote or why. Like I never anymore. Growing up, it was the thing. Like the commercial break before final tribal, we'd sit around. Who do you think's going to go? Why? Who do you think's going to go? Why? The whole family would go around. Now it's like I have no idea. I don't even know who has what going into tribal, and I'm quote unquote expert. No one ever quoted that except me. But yeah, it's hard to tell what's going on.
Yeah. So, all right, for the 2 fake idols that are out there, okay, for Danny, what did you think about the way that he handled? Okay, so Matt found the key. Then he confronted Matt about the key. What did you think about that?
I thought that was an interesting decision, because I went into this whole birdcage advantage going, I don't want what's in the birdcage. I think the most powerful thing is if you know who has what's in there and they don't know you do. Like that's my dream
Rick,
scenario.
That's my thesis about the whole entire new era, that the most valuable thing is not having the thing, that it truly is, that I believe that the subtitle of the entire new era is knowledge is power, that you don't need to actually have any of the things. In fact, you often put yourself in bad positions by going after the things and having the things. Just all you need is to know who has the things.
Totally agree. And that's why I thought it was, if I was Danny, I'd have just known that and saved that piece of information and not wanted Matt to know that.
Right.
We'll see how that plays out. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Something else, Rick, that I thought was so unusual and also very fun. Danny, okay, we see him ultimately come up with this plan. This is what he's going to do, but he comes up with a foolproof plan to find out that nobody will ever know the thing that he was going to hide is actually a fake thing, and he eats the idol clue. Did you ever consider eating any of the tree mail, parchment, or anything that you were given on Survivor?
I did not. I appreciate Danny. I think he's doing that for us. I think he's doing the somersault for us. Thank you, Danny. But no,
Yeah, the somersault was wild too.
Yeah. Hey, there's an ocean there you can throw things into. There's a fire always you can throw things into.
Yeah.
And most importantly, no, I kept everything. I've still got a binder in my garage.
Yeah, Danny, do you know what that's worth on eBay? Right.
Yeah, exactly. Sell that for Give Kids the World someday, Danny.
Yeah.
But no, I loved it. I love that he was willing to go there. And you might not know this, Rob. They don't get food nowadays. In this new iteration, there's no food. They're just out there suffering, man.
So do you think that there was actually any sort of like strategic benefit of sustenance from eating the tree mail?
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding. You saw his energy. That's pure energy. I'm sure on a loan there would be a little, bottom third that was like, every piece of tree mail has 3 calories. That's the equivalent of, half a fish or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Rick, last night we saw over on one of the tribes, the RHAP tribe, they were eating worms, and they were making like a whole like the show made a meal out of it, as the players did themselves. Did you ever eat anything unusual while you were on Survivor?
I did not. No, I didn't. For one, like I had some body fat and was not ever we went days without eating, but I was never starving enough to eat a worm. The juice isn't worth the squeeze, as they say. And I'm a big softy, and Big Windy was on my tribe, and it's like if I didn't have to kill anything, I didn't. So yeah.
Yeah. Would Big Wendy have freed the worms if you came in there and like, hey, we got all the worms. Okay, we're gonna eat them all later. Big Wendy potentially could then end up setting them all free.
Big Windy would have absolutely set them all free. Like, I'll tell you this, that there was a big rift between Lauren and Kelly and Big Windy. Like, they did not get along at all. And a big part of this was in a tent before a challenge one time. There's a spider, a big, nasty, scary looking spider crawling over Lauren. And she's like, oh, I'm about to kill it. And Big Windy was like, no, don't kill it. And then the Survivor people are like, shh, stop, shh, everyone stop talking, because we're not on camera. And Wendy's like, let me get it. And Lauren's like, this is stupid. Leave me alone. And so Wendy comes over and gets this spider and frees it. And Lauren was so annoyed by Big Windy making a deal out of this spider. And all of us are just here like, who cares?
And nobody was like, hey, let's eat it.
Yeah, exactly. No one wanted to eat it. But yeah, Big Windy would set the worms free. She'd set anything free. She is a legitimate, just like, lover of all living things in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that the worms, it'll be interesting to see just if Jamie continues to eat the worms. I feel like that, this is like a Survivor rite of passage. I think people want to eat one bug, and I think that's it.
Totally. Absolutely. You just want to try it out, and then this isn't getting me much. I didn't wake up the next morning going, all right, I'm going to get that challenge. Maybe stick to the coconut that you can find, or papayas or whatever.
Jamie also was setting up house plants around the camp. This is also something new that I've never seen before on Survivor. I mean, 44 seasons in, we keep seeing new stuff, Rick.
It's a beautiful thing. It's nice that all these plants that have been growing no problem on this deserted island finally have someone to take care of them. It is beautiful out there. There's a lot of cool fauna. So I thought that was funny that her and Matt are bonding over the plant life. I liked that.
Now, okay, Matthew, that is somebody that we have seen him do a lot of different things in this season. He's playing the shot in the dark to try to hide his vote. He's finding the idol. He's making a fake idol. He's telling Brandon to play his idol. He's climbing all the rocks. He's also, Rick, trying to ace all of the challenges because he has practiced them at home. And so, Rick, you saw Matthew got asked, how you seemed like such a natural at that. How did you get so good at it? And he said, well, Jeff, I have been practicing my whole life for this. I have built this challenge in my backyard out of plywood. And so, Rick, I happened to notice that challenge that Matthew built happened to be the very same challenge that you were able to defeat without presumably having the home version in your backyard before you went. This was what you had to do to get back from the edge of extinction.
It's true. I had to beat the snake. And it's also true that I did not build a home version of it.
Yes.
That's the first time I've ever done anything like that. And it is, it's tough. It's tough. I can see how practice would help. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, Rick, I had seen on Twitter, you had said that you do not like the fact that Survivor contestants are able to get ahead of the game and practice these challenges before they go on the island.
Yeah, it's something I even labeled it an unreasonable request, but I do think it'd be better if all the challenges were new every year, or if you only kept challenges that were like not practicable, because it is an unfair advantage if you have a personal 3D printer or if you have power tools and plywood in a backyard, in time. Over some people that can't do that stuff. And I got feedback that's like Survivor's nothing but advantages for some people, not, based on size, all that stuff. And that's true. And the players like good for doing it. And I'm not sure what the results are. Like Ron and David on my season both did practice puzzles ahead of time. Neither of them did it pay off. Chelsea Walker did it and didn't get a chance to hit any of those puzzles, but it's working for Matthew. It didn't work for Carson last night on the Spencer style puzzle, but
yeah,
it's working for Matthew.
It's such a fine line. And David and Jessica were talking about this on the Why Blank Lost podcast last week, where, I personally, I feel like, okay, they should be making new stuff, because I think about Survivor, it's like The Price is Right. Okay, it's like, oh, you're doing Plinko, you're doing this. And, I do think that it's like, I don't know how I feel about if somebody is like, oh, I've built Plinko in my backyard and I practice it every single day. But they do have, and they have had in different game shows, as Jessica Lewis was mentioning, where like the guy who figured out how the order of Press Your Luck goes, and that was like a scandal. And they made a whole documentary about the guy who got the perfect bid on Price is Right because he memorized all of the prices of the things because they were reusing the cars. And again, what did they start doing? They changed up and didn't keep using the same exact prices or the same items that you could like get ahead like that. So like I love the idea that people are practicing for doing puzzles, but I don't think I like the fact that you can practice the exact puzzle that you were going to do on Survivor.
I totally agree. And that being said, going into the challenge last night, I went, someone's going to get this in 8 seconds. I would get this in 8 seconds because I've practiced this one. I printed it out on paper. And then they didn't get it in 8 seconds. And I went, oh, I'm probably wrong. I probably would have totally choked this
Was
away.
the 3D printer down that day? Or it doesn't do colors,
Right,
I think. That's
exactly.
it. I think that's the thing.
Maybe so. So you had to go cheat. But yeah, it's a tough problem because it is hard coming up with stuff. But then again, to bring Australian Survivor into it, they seem to, at least these days, they repeat stuff also and they borrow stuff from the US, but they seem to come up with more new stuff. And even Survivor last night, it's like half the challenge was new, but then you go to a puzzle you've done a bunch. It's like, why'd you do that? Just do the pet challenge, the puzzle new too, and then it's a whole new thing. And I like that. Can I ask you, Rob, about Matthew?
Anything you want. I played with a Matthew also.
Yeah, I remember your Matthew. He was a character. This one I haven't seen sharpening the machete quite as much. Is he playing too hard, too fast? Not
I personally
only in his strategic stuff, but I remember, Dino from Survivor South Africa went on one season and he's getting ready to go on his next season. And he told me, he's like, I might be going out again. Do you have any advice? And my advice specifically for him was, Dino, you don't have to do everything. In your first season, every time they were like, does someone want to do this? You were there, going up to pick up immunity from Jeff. You were the one grabbing it. Sit back. Like, people notice that stuff. And I feel like Matthew is, and Dino did in his second season sit back and he won. So I take full credit. But I think Matthew is like that guy right now who has to be doing everything.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, we've heard survivors talk about this before. Like, I believe like Mike White in the early days of David versus Goliath talked about, like, I know I'm not supposed to be like out, like going to go look for the things, but I'm on Survivor. Like, I have to go do it. And you and I were talking right before we came on about my Disney trip and how my wife and I were not necessarily on the same wavelength with the Disney trip, where I came in and I had a plan of, okay, we're going to come in and I want to do this and I want to do this. And I saw on the Disney food blog that you got to go into this place and then look for this. And I just wanted to, like, we got to make sure we do everything because I don't know when we're ever going to get back here again. So we can't not do something that we said we were going to do. And I kind of feel like, and Matthew, I feel like is that on Survivor. I'm like, I waited my whole life to be here. This is a lifelong dream. I got to get this all in. I want to make a fake idol. I want to do this plan. I came up with this plan. I want to do this plan, and I'm going to do all of it. But I do wonder if maybe the better approach might be like my wife or like Rick Devens of like, hey, let's just see what happens. Let's just see. Let's just walk around. Let's see if we see a fake idol, we'll grab it. But we don't need to be on a schedule.
Yeah. And your tribe is just get, if you're in the challenge and you're going, I hurt my shoulder, and then you want to be the guy up there with your arm above your head hitting the key, that type of stuff doesn't go unnoticed. And just like the tribe last night weaponized Claire sitting out, even though it's silly and not necessarily a thing, someone's going to weaponize it if they want Matthew out. Yeah, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Rick, let's talk a little bit about this Tika tribe, which is down to just 4 members after they lost your winner pick on last week's episode. And they came back, and of course we have Jam Jam and Carolyn, who are, the big fan favorites. And then here's Carson, who seemed to have like a relish blindsiding Helen in his first confessional.
Yeah, it's always weird seeing that.
I thought that was your friend, Carson.
Exactly. Because in the game, you can see that. Like, I remember Ron Clark on our season. Oh, the blood of a blindside. You just love it. But Helen's at home watching that, going, Carson spent the last,
why are you being like this?
Years since we got off the island, telling me how hard of a decision that was. And then he goes and makes me look stupid and calls me sneaky and all these like coded things. And it's like, Carson's a character. He definitely he doesn't like confidence. Yes.
No, definitely not.
So, if you compare yourself constantly to Tom Holland, you're a confident gentleman.
Do you, Rick, think there's any hope for Sarah, or do you think that she is going to be the next person voted out of this group?
I don't think there's a lot of hope for Sarah. I don't. I hope I'm not reading into it too much. I hope I'm not reading into social media stuff too much, because that can be deceptive. Like, I thought Claire was going real far based on social media.
What did you see on social media that makes you feel like that Sarah isn't long for this world?
The fact that the other 3 are very, very active. Usually you don't get that, and she's not. And usually that can be a sign of things.
Yeah,
but sometimes it's
that
not.
could also
Chris
just be
Underwood,
her persona. It's not like that
Exactly.
every person who does well on Survivor is necessarily like a huge social media presence.
1,000,000%. You have the Zach Wirtz and the Claires who are so good on social media that I was confident they were going really far, and it's like they didn't, and they're just great on social media. So I'm probably reading into it a lot, but I do think those 3 are really close. Carson seems like he has no interest in working with Sarah, and he was the only one who seemed interested in the first place. Shout out to Jam Jam carrying the box by himself and telling Jeff about it while the other 3 members carried a box together. Like, that was awesome. And they're such a fun tribe. Like, it is hard not to root for that trio of Carson, Carolyn, and Jam Jam. They're 3 fun, likable people.
That is one of the most interesting alliances in the history of the show. That 3 like very different people like working together. And, I'm trying to think of some other like interesting alliances of like, strange bedfellows of like 3 or 4 like very different people. And I feel like that you have a lot of like pairs, but a trio where they're all so different, I think is very interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's tough being Sarah, who seems like this very pleasant, fairly normal person. It's like hard to get into that, I would think, especially after voting on the outside, because Carolyn literally fell on the ground when Carson came over and, pledged himself to her. It's like, how do you win her back if you're Sarah? That's a really tough thing to do.
Yeah, and Carolyn is just such a fun presence on the show. Although it was a slower night for Carolyn.
Yeah, it's slower. They won for one thing, so we didn't have
Mhm.
to go back with them, which was nice for them. Yeah, I think it was good. Leave us wanting more. Leave us
Yep.
wanting more Carolyn is always a good idea. And more Jam Jam. I really Jam Jam I thought was going to be the big character. And he's so funny the way he deals with Carolyn and like
Right.
manages Carolyn. It really is a great dynamic.
Really, in any other scenario, like Jam Jam would be like the really colorful character, but with Carolyn, he's like the straight man. He's like the like sort of the person who is just bouncing off of like the wacky character of Carolyn.
Yeah, it's very true. It's interesting. And then Carolyn, I'm like, what is going on there? Because she's so different, it's hard to get a read on her. And yet, if you just look at the numbers, right? She's doing really well in the game. She's playing a great game. But her tribe seems to underestimate it. The fact that she wasn't even considered for a suspect in the birdcage type thing. It's like she might be in a really great position.
Mhm.
And playing a really wild game, but like a solid game.
But what's interesting about Carolyn is that she's sort of like this very like unusual personality, but Rick, she's not a lot of drama where, sort of like you have somebody who sort of like, okay, is a like kind of broke the mold, but I feel like that often that person is like in a lot of conflict. That Carolyn like has like a very good social game, even though she is a very unique person. She's a very unique person that is like not rubbing people the wrong way.
I think that's a great point. I've seen her compare herself to Nora, so I'll just go with that comparison.
Mhm.
It's like Nora was a very fun, zany character, but you could tell her tribe mates were aggravated. Like
They
she's
rolled their
bossing us
eyes when she was
around, she's doing this.
talking, like, yeah,
Exactly. They weren't fans. Whereas Carolyn seems like she's going with the flow,
they love
positive
her.
attitude while they're all starving. And it's like that's free TV. That's entertainment. War Dog on our season was the War Dog podcast the whole time, and I loved it. It's like, what else would I be doing if I didn't have him telling me about the Beatles right now? So,
What was he
yeah,
saying about the Beatles?
he's a huge George Harrison fan. George Harrison is his number one Beatle. And I don't know that much about the Beatles, even though Becca's a huge fan. So I didn't. Now I do.
Now you do.
That many days, 30, whatever days on the island he was out there, you learn a lot about the Beatles.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So one other thing from Tika last night, we had where Carolyn and Jam Jam were discussing that Jam Jam snores. Okay. Snores so bad, and it makes Carolyn upset that he looks like, and he's smiling when he's snoring. And Jam Jam said that people get voted out for snoring in the tribe. Rick, were there any people that you spent time with, either in the game or at the edge of extinction, who had very bad snoring?
No, I'm very grateful to say that snoring was not an
How
issue
do you
at
know it
any
wasn't
time while I
you?
was out there. I think I did snore a couple times when I would like just fall asleep during the day briefly on my back, but when I sleep, I'm on my side if I'm actually going to sleep. So I didn't snore at night. I might vote someone out. I wouldn't vote out a
Yeah.
close ally for snoring, but if it's a toss up, yeah, that's awful. My roommate freshman year was like the loudest snore ever, and it was torture. It was
Mhm.
literally just a really awful thing to live with.
I was very conscious of this because I do think that according to the first lady of podcasting, who I did not know this about me yet at that point in time. But like I was very concerned about snoring, and I would purposely like sleep face down because then I think that you only are snoring like when you're like face up. So I would be like face down to the point where not even an ideal way to sleep because I would often wake up with like my limbs like completely numb from sleeping on the wooden sticks, but I didn't want to snore.
Yeah. That's interesting because I also the whole last half of the game, once it got cold outside, slept on my stomach, like with my arms underneath
Yes,
me
yes.
so that I could, right by the fire. So that probably helped. But typically I'm a side guy. Like I can't sleep on my back unless I fall asleep that way, like watching football or by being exhausted for not eating for 37 days.
Rick, do you have any takes on all of the theming going on here in this season. That we've got the swords, the shields, we've got all of the chess pieces, we've got the gargoyle. There's a lot going on.
It's a lot going on. There's got to be something to it. Really weird that it's not on the logo, as you already pointed out. I love the immunity idol. Don't necessarily get it, but I love it. A sword and a shield that go together. I love what Kane did with it. Great Kane moments.
Right. Now, are you a fantasy guy, Rick?
I am a big I'm a big fan of fantasy. I've never played D&D, but I'm into it. Like I listen to Dimension 20. There's a guy, he's actually a really big Survivor fan named Brennan, who works with Dropout TV and stuff. And they have a great thing. Worlds Unknown, I think, might be their new podcast. But I love that D&D stuff. So this is fun. And typically anyone who's ever played D&D, I feel a kinship with, even though I haven't. But I think it might all be I think the chessboard is something. I think the chessboard, I saw Angelina post about this. Zach Wertz has a friend looking into it. I think that's something. And I think everything else might be to help disguise that the chessboard is something.
What do you think it could be?
I think at some
is
point,
it like a
able to make
situation?
Yeah, something.
Yeah,
I do.
If I had to guess, if the chessboard is anything, I think like one of the pieces is like either like a trick piece where you like unscrew the top and there's something inside of it, or one of the pieces like themselves like is the idol and you take it with you when you go up there. But I can't imagine how it would work where you making a move on the board could like potentially unlock something.
Right. Because Survivor's not the type of show that would have just like not show the guy reach out and hit. Like they do it in a fancier, cooler way than that. It is unique because also on our season, first tribal council, Jeff says, don't mess with anything in the voting booth. There's nothing up there. Don't tear it apart. We decorated it. There's a lot of stuff that looks, it's not. Don't mess with anything. So if I went out there and he didn't say that, you know?
Rick, I have to imagine, and this is just complete supposition, that they did tell them, do not touch anything in there, because you feel like that, you know, in this new era, you got to think every single person that goes up there is like taking that whole thing apart and like looking underneath everything and going through it. And we saw even Adam Klein in Survivor 40 before he tried to play the fleur-de-lis as an idol, like was like examining like the urn and like looking for it. So I do think that they probably had to like ask them, like, do not touch anything except for the marker.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder if there's anything there that it's like one piece, like maybe there'll be a piece there that's not a chess piece and some other piece is this many, you know, it symbolizes like a map of how to get an advantage back at camp or something like that. But I've got my eyes on it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see if it ultimately develops to anything or if it's just some cool scenery. Rick, I've got some questions for you from the listeners of the podcast. Okay. Let me ask you a question. All right. This is from Justin Feinberg, who wants to know, why do players like Matt and Sarah constantly tell their tribe mates they lost their vote? Time and time again, we see that the votes are a player's leverage, and it is known that a player lost their vote. We see their leverage go down in strategic situations. How difficult is it to get on the same page with the people that you go on the journey with and build a narrative that will make sense to your tribe mates when they go on future journeys? What will it take for players to stop making this basic mistake?
That's an interesting one because I definitely played with the theory of like, keep it to yourself. You know, when I found idols, I didn't tell anybody except for the one I had to tell David about because I had to give him half of it. But like this emailer points out or listener points out, they're going to get found out at some point because 2 other people went on the trip. So do you just come clean right away, or do you take the chance that maybe this alienates someone you're working with later on? That's a good question. I don't think I would want to tell people I'd lost my vote. If it's a close vote, though, they can find out on their own. It can screw stuff up. There's just a lot that goes into it.
Now, do you feel like was there any sort of like the DNA of like what went on at the edge of extinction built into like any of these like birdcage twists where the group had some information and then there was like everybody looking for a thing? Like was that how things were going when you were there?
I'd never thought about that, but yeah, that's how it was on the edge. We were just so bored all the time, nothing to do. And then all of a sudden, it's like scavenger hunt, go crazy. And because you can't vote each other out, it's like, who cares? Do whatever you can do. Chris and Keith can push each other all the way up that hill because he can't vote you out. But I guess they are trying to maybe force some of that action. And definitely, we've seen it at the end of seasons now where they're like, solve this word puzzle and then go find an advantage. That's very Edge of Extinction-y, as opposed to letting something happen more organically.
Rick, going back to this business with, keeping Claire versus Josh, do you feel like that the equation is any different here in the new era about keeping challenge competitors in the tribe as opposed to the people that are closest to you from an alliance perspective?
I absolutely do. I think when the tribes are that small, you think, if we get rid of Josh, we're this. If we get rid of Claire, we're this. It's a big difference in a small tribe competitively. Just speaking physically, obviously you can't tell how people are doing puzzle wise, but I think people look at that. They go, we don't have to win that many to make it deep in the game. Whereas if we start losing, it doesn't matter if I'm keeping all the women. If I'm a woman and we have a 3-3 thing and can take the advantage, that doesn't matter if I think we're going to lose before there's ever a swap, because the swaps are so far away now and the tribes are so small. So I really think if I was out there, I'd think my best chance of making it to a point where I can actually play a strategic game is to just win these early ones and avoid tribal council, because people don't have votes. Everyone has an advantage. There are people going on these things. Like, I don't feel like I have any control going to tribal council early, so I just have to win my way till I can gain some control.
Do you feel like the show has an issue currently with the 3-tribe format season after season? I went through the stats last night. I think it's 7 out of 8 women who have been voted out from their tribes. The only man to get voted out was Gio, who was the smallest person on his tribe here. It wasn't the case in 41 and 42, but now these players come back and they see that there's no swaps. Do you feel like the show needs to do something different?
Yes, I do. I think that's absolutely the reason that small women are getting sent home first, is because you just go, we already lost one. If we lose another one, we're toast.
Yeah,
we're toast, because the other people are resting their quote unquote weak players. So I do think they need to change it. I also just think I love Survivor. It was crazy in the get-go to be like, let's do seasons where everything's the same.
Right.
Why was that a good idea? We love when you change it. And of course, Survivor fans, we're going to criticize you no matter what, but change it.
But what I don't understand is like, I've never really heard the reason of like, that Jeff on his podcast, I think is trying to explain, here's the thinking behind why we do this. And people ask, why do we have so many advantages? And why do we do this? This is one I've never heard the explanation for of, okay, we came back in the new era and this is the format now. It's 3 tribes and they've said, okay, you have nowhere to hide. But I don't know. That doesn't really hold a lot of weight for me. In terms of like what's, and also we're not going to do any swaps either. And I think that's also part of the factor here, because I'm going to be with this group for, the first 5 or 6 votes of the game. I do need to keep the tribe strong. So I don't really know why they have to do it this way and why it seems like that they're so dug in on, okay, this is what it has to be. Rick, your season was 18 people. Okay. And I think the 18 is a good number. I don't think that Survivor can really tell the story of 20 players. I think that not with 42 minutes a week. And they figured it out. And then you went to 3 tribes. And I know you didn't love that part. But if you really, if it's like, hey, it's very important that we have 3 tribes at some point in our season. I mean, you could do that after a little bit.
And the fact is, like, we were waiting for a swap. We were strategizing, thinking like there's going to be a swap. That's why Underwood went home and not Kelly. That's the only reason why. In this new era, Kelly would have gone home in a heartbeat because we need Underwood's strength and because we know we're not going to lose him to someone else. So, yeah, I think there's no reason not to change up things like that every season. Like, I get why it makes sense to stay on the same islands. I get why it's easier to repeat challenges, even if I don't like it. But like switching up the tribes is something that doesn't affect that much. Why wouldn't you do it? And you say there's no place to hide. Hiding is a decent strategy early in the game.
Yeah. Did anybody see Survivor 43? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm not even saying like don't ever do 3 tribes to start.
Right,
You could do 3 tribes to start, but we've done 4 seasons in a row, and now we've done 2 seasons back to back where people have seen that this is what the format is, and especially to have it where and I know that we're not going to swap, and so it really puts the women players like in a very bad position where that they have just been like, I mean, this is not like a statistical anomaly that you could say of like, oh, well, it's just random that, is this 7 out of 8 women. And also, the smallest man from his tribe also were the people that got voted out first.
Right. Totally. It's just trying to not go to tribal council. That's all you're trying to do. Because again, you get to tribal council, not only is it a small tribe, but who knows what's going on because so much happens early in the game with people losing their votes, people being handed advantages for doing nothing except, drawing a straw and going on this trip. There's way too many variables to think, you know what? I'm going to position myself in a way where it's okay if we go to tribal. It's okay if we go to 3 tribals because I'll just come out with my alliance. It's like, no, you're not going to take that chance, even if you feel in control, because there are these other variables at play.
Okay. Rick, how about this from Sophie Berdinsky wants to know, would you rather have a tribe mate that steps up to participate in challenges, even if they're weak physically, or someone who willingly sits out while everybody else gives 100%? Would you rather have somebody, and maybe let me just put a little bit of a pointy end on this question of like, would you rather have somebody who sits out willingly or somebody who's bad at the challenges but insists on, I need to be in the challenges?
That second person gets voted out first. The person who insists on being in the challenges and loses you the challenge, they have to go. But if for lack of that person, if everyone's doing pretty well and not costing you the challenge, and then there's this other person who's not getting dirty, not suffering, and maybe not with me. Again, if they're with me in an alliance, I could care less. I love them. But if they're not, absolutely, I'm using that as a target thing. Just as like, I play pickup basketball, and I could have worked with a person for a month every day, 9 to 5, and I'll have this relationship with them. I go out one afternoon to pick up basketball and a guy's on my team for 3 games. I love that person. Like, I am bonded. We've been through battle, quote unquote. So I do think it makes a difference whether you're in these challenges or not.
Yeah. It is an interesting point of, being in the heat of the battle, and then, does losing together, bond you as a group or not? I will say that for me, that I got voted out in Survivor All-Stars. The only time I ever sat out of a challenge. Was it connected? Probably not. But I will say that I do feel like that it was not my choice to sit out of the challenge. It was a blindfold challenge. I didn't want to be one of the blindfolded people. I wanted to be the caller, and I got outvoted for being the caller. But I think I would have helped on the puzzle.
And do you regret it to this day? Do you think that
I
you wish
do
you were in
regret it.
there?
I do regret it to this day. I wish I would have like fought hard, but I feel like that there was not a. I should not have been one of the people. I mean, I might be dead because the people that got like were
Right,
severely
torn
concussed.
ACLs. Yeah.
Yes. Like Big Tom, it was like that he got hit by like a Mac truck of like, somebody was like
Oh my
carrying like,
gosh.
50-pound blocks, like, and just like walked like into him like face first.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I always flash back to Spencer Bledsoe on that season, getting the one that bends his knee backwards,
Oh yeah.
or
Yeah.
not. What's his name? Something with an R.
Ryman.
Ryman. Sorry. Yeah, Ryman.
Yes. Okay. All right. This is from Caitlin and wants to know, who is your favorite member of the Jeff Calls Me by My Last Name Club? Have we had that in the new era?
Is there anyone who goes by their last name?
I don't really know anybody's. Gabler?
Gabler.
Mhm.
Gabler is there.
Gabler
The
is there.
Gabler.
The Alligabler.
I don't know. I mean, I love Cochran. Cochran's the
Mhm.
reason I wanted it, because he had mentioned it that time, and it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Colby, of course, is a throwback all the way.
But do people in real life call you
Listina.
Devens?
Survivor fan. I never introduced I would love to introduce myself as Devens, but I just don't have it in me to do it. Same reason I can't. Like, I love those survivors that are confident enough to like wear their buff to work out and wear their buff out to.
You're wearing
like,
a buff.
I can't. I'm wearing your buff. The RHAP buff is
Yes.
different. I wear this I actually do wear your buff to basketball every time. But if I were a Survivor buff, I'd feel like, oh, look at me. Whereas this, I'm like, oh, look at me subtly. So, where was I going with this?
You were talking about that you wish that people call you Devens.
Oh, Devens, yeah. So when I hear Devens, I know it's probably a Survivor fan, and I absolutely love it. But I'm Rick almost all the time in my regular life. Like I introduce myself as Rick. I've always been Rick.
This was a big podcast week for you because
cool.
you got to this. I mean, what a treat that you got to. I got to spend a podcast with you, and then also my great friend Josh Wiggler also got to sit down with you this week.
You spun it right halfway through. It was about to be the truth, which was I was so lucky to sit down with you guys. Like I was so excited because both you and Josh, like we have our different things that we'll text back and forth with. For you and me, it's football a lot of times, family. For him, it's movies, TV. But to actually sit down and talk with you two very busy guys, you almost have to do a
very
podcast.
different things. Yes, and so you talked to Josh about that you did a season 1 recap of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Was that a video game that you had played and got into the show, or was it just a show only?
I've never played the video game, just the show for me. And obviously I love video games, but as I told Josh, I'm like a 2-screen guy. So I only play video games I can play on mute, like Fortnite or Madden while I'm watching Cheers or The Office on the other TV.
Yeah. Okay. And do you see any parallels between Survivor and The Last of Us?
Oh, that's a good one. Ellie would have been gone right away. An undersized woman. She would have been in a lot of trouble, even though she's got all the makings of a great Survivor winner. She would have been, unfortunately, with Claire and Helen and Maddie, who were great players, but just had no chance. Carson and Carolyn might be Joel and Ellie.
That's interesting.
Maybe that's what it is. Or maybe Jam and Carolyn are Joel and Ellie. I don't know. Everyone's hungry on both shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anybody eaten the paper on The Last of Us?
That's probably how they survive this long. Yeah. But eating parchment. Yeah.
Rick, I saw that there was what went on with you and Mr. Beast?
Me and Mr. Beast. This was so random, man. I'm a Mr. Beast fan. I learned about him through my son. Did not know about him before. I got a 9-year-old son, huge fan. He tells me about Mr. Beast, and I started watching with him and was like, oh, this is actually really good. Like, he makes amazing videos. A lot of times he does good charitable things. Like he's a good example for like a young kid, especially considering
Yes.
all the other stuff on YouTube that could either be bad or just annoying.
Yeah.
So at one point, Mr. Beast tweeted out something about his Feastable candy bar aisles at Walmart were messy. And he was like, if you see that this is messy, clean this up for me. And I showed Jack, and Jack was like, let's go clean it up. This is awesome.
Let's go to Walmart and clean up Mr. Beast's candy aisle.
Exactly. So I was like,
Wow.
well, we got to go to Walmart anyway. We'll go help Mr. Beast. And so I just tweeted, it was kind of like a, hey, Mr. Beast, I'm over here in case you want to,
Right.
invite me and Jesse on your show. We're big fans.
Yes. No, Jesse is a big Mr. Beast fan too.
Exactly.
Yes,
Anyone with kids our age, I think, knows and appreciates Mr. Beast.
Yes. My son too. Yeah.
So that I didn't think anything of it. Just like, we're going to go to Walmart and fix it up while we're there. And people responded like, I can't believe you're teaching your kid to work for a millionaire for free. Like, you capitalist jerk. Someone
He's
said they
probably a
hope Jack
billionaire, yeah.
spontaneously combust. Even though he wasn't even a part of this poor guy. So it was this big thing. And then a online Rolling Stone writer reached out and asked about a quote. And I was just like, oh, it's ridiculous. And it just turned into this little mini thing.
Wow.
Still haven't heard from Mr. Beast, but I'm waiting.
Yeah. Wow. A whole controversy.
Put in a good word.
Yeah, I was gonna say now, like if you go, not that a record store is a thing, but if you go into Walmart and you see that like Sia's, albums are askew, do you have to clean that up also, Rick? Is that part of your duty?
There's nothing I won't do for Sia. There's nothing I won't. She did something so big for me without me asking, without me doing anything. I am dedicated to Sia for life. Absolutely. I'll clean up that CD item. I will open a CD store. It'll be Sia D's.
Yeah, that'll be nice. That would be very nice if you could do that for her. Okay. A lot of people want to know about if the players can ever trust that they have a real immunity idol again. Like, what do you do? You get an idol now, okay? You're on, you're on Survivor 45. You have found an idol. What are you doing to sort of, how do you vet that?
I don't know if there is a way to vet it. I think, if I find an idol, I never assume it's real. I keep looking for other idols if I need one, and I don't strategize around it. We've seen on Australian Survivor certainly recently where people say, hey, I'm going to use this idol, put the votes on me or put the votes on them, and I'll use it to save them. But at this point, I would not play an idol unless, almost like a shot in the dark. Like, sure, I'll play it if I think I might be going home or my ally might be going home, but I'm never playing it. I'm never basing my strategy go around this idol unless I have to.
Rick, you mentioned Australian Survivor. We've seen players like Sandra and Russell also go play in Australian Survivor. I know you're a big Australian Survivor fan. Would you ever consider, if they asked you, would you play Australian Survivor?
Oh man, that would be tough. It would. So this is just Australian Survivor. This is not a partnership or like US versus Australia.
No,
this is just like come be a person.
This is, you're going to be on, Australian Survivor 2024.
I love Australian Survivor, but it's more days away from the family for less money and a lot less viewers, especially American viewers that I live around. So I don't think I'd give up a chance to do US Survivor.
Yes. Do you know? Do you give up a chance to do US Survivor?
I don't know.
Nobody knows.
My theory is if you go on other shows, they probably won't want you as much. That's why I avoid it. Well, that and the fact that I'm not invited is why I avoid it.
But I don't know.
I might consider was Survivor SA because I love
do you feel like Sari is out of the mix for a future Survivor because she did the Traitors?
Yeah.
You do?
I do. That's what I think. I think Ben, Danny, Sarah, I think they're all out of the mix. Tyson. Why do you think they're doing all these newbie seasons? They need other people.
because a lot of the Survivor alumni are doing other. I just think they like doing the new seasons. I don't know. I'd be surprised if like we get to like a Survivor 50 and none of these people who have done other shows are get the call back.
Have they had other? I mean, they've had people who've done Amazing Race and not Big Brother. They
Did
brought people from Big Brother.
Michelle come back to Winners at War after she had done a season of the challenge, or it was Michelle only did seasons of the challenge after Winners at War?
After Winners at War.
Okay, somebody's gonna break that curse.
Maybe so, but
I believe it.
I like Survivor so much more than any of these other things that I just would be afraid to burn that bridge. But that's so stupid because then I'll not get invited back. And, but again, I'm not being invited. So it's not a tough decision. It's not like I'm saying no to people.
Okay. Rick, how's everything on the Surviving Snyder podcast?
It's terrific. Thank you for all your support for that. As always, Brendan Shapiro of Ghost Island, and of course, Dalton Ross, Entertainment Weekly Survivor cover, we all do the show together, and we are so good at this that our 3 winner picks for this season were Brendan picked Maddie, I picked Helen, and Dalton picked Claire. No joke. The first 3 people voted out.
That is almost impossible to do. So incredible.
Never could have done it if that's what we were trying to do.
If you were trying to do that. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you 3 identified a Survivor fan of every NFL team?
Oh gosh. We have pretty good coverage because we invite survivors on to talk about the game, but also talk about their football love. Congrats on Aaron Rodgers. Is that a congrats?
Aaron Rodgers' intention is to play for the Jets, but a lot still going on. And also a little bit of it was a double-edged sword on Wednesday with the Edwin Diaz news. Don't even get me started about the World Baseball Classic.
Man,
also known as the worst baseball classic.
Even as a Braves fan, I hate to see
Shut it down. Yeah.
We might have one from every team. We have got our bases pretty well covered.
Jaguars fan? You have a Survivor Jaguars fan?
We do have a Jaguars fan, but I'm trying to think who it is.
You have a Survivor Titans fan?
So I don't know if we had a Titans fan. We have people like, Figgy is a Colts fan, but she's in.
I guess
Tennessee.
You get Taj. Yeah.
Oh, of course, Taj, Eddie George. Yeah, right. We need to get Taj. That would be a great one. We'll put Dalton on that.
Yeah, you got enough people in Houston. I'm sure you could find a Texans fan.
For sure. Even though Karishma is an Eagles fan.
Yes.
Yeah, Carl, we actually had Carl on, who I think was
the Godfather.
Roots for the Texans. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You got a Panthers fan?
Yes, we do. Who was it that was in Carolina? It wasn't Underwood.
Wasn't me.
It definitely wasn't you.
Yeah.
You weren't in Carolina.
Oh, should we see if Chris Underwood will come to our upcoming Raleigh live show?
I bet he would. Yeah.
Oh, let me see.
That'd be great. He'd be fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he does like to just pop in at the last second. Yeah, that is his thing.
That's right. He might come just the last 5 minutes of the party.
The last second. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I would love, by the way, to come to that. I wish I could get away. It's so hard for me to get away in the middle of the week, even to get to Atlanta.
I get it.
Much less Raleigh, but that sounds like it's a blast. Can't wait to meet Jesse in real life finally. Fishback and I consider Fishback one of my dear friends.
Yes.
Because for 3 years now, every week we play Fortnite together.
Yes.
We're constantly on this group text. I've never met him in real life still.
Yes. This Fortnite game, this is a very exclusive game to get into.
Yeah, it's true. It's pretty exclusive. We've had visitors. Owen came and played with us. Dino has played with us, but yeah, it's pretty exclusive.
Yeah. Rick, that my 9-year-old son, this was a big argument in the house yesterday. He thinks that we should get Fortnite. And that he is we're in a long-standing debate about this. That I don't want Fortnite at my house, and that his case is that it's not that violent. it's not that violent. I said, isn't the whole thing that you're killing people? And he's like, no, you build stuff. And also, it's really not violent, is the case that he's trying to make.
So that's your argument against it, is the violence. You're out because
you're
out there
like
with guns shooting each other,
and then they like I see he's like doing like all of like the dances, and we don't even have the game, Rick. Like, what's it gonna be like if we do have the game?
He's just trying to fit in with his peers. This is about his social. He's like,
I just wanted to I could talk to my friends.
So obviously gunplay. It's there, but there's no blood. You're landing on this island and you just disappear. It's almost like laser tag-ish. It's like
that's what they've been. That's the argument they've been making.
Yeah,
he said you don't die. You just like get disappeared with like a helicopter.
If we invite you to play with us, is that what we're looking for? Cochran has joined us. He's a player.
Well, I told Jesse that because I know Jesse's very into it. I said, Jesse, I have absolutely no interest in Fortnite whatsoever, but I would do it just to hang. I would do it as a so like we could do something, but it's not my thing.
You'd be perfect with Fishback and I, just absorbing bullets. Not a lot of play. Yeah, Jesse.
I'm more of a Fortnite person,
thing,
Rick.
And then Jesse came in and really, he and Carla went Fortnite crazy. So we got to invite them over to come play with us sometime.
Okay. All right.
We tried the streaming thing and realized our group, like, we just want to talk about like, how's your family?
How
was work
no.
week?
Then you gotta like be doing like a whole show. Like, I'm not interested in streaming.
It didn't work out.
No, thank you.
No,
I look like I'm on a stream enough. You don't need me on a stream doing Fortnite. What is this? How does this work? Like, oh, this guy is old. What is he doing? All right, Rick. So nice to get to catch up. Anything else going on that's exciting?
I think we covered just about everything. I'm excited about baseball season. But man, this has been this has been so much fun. I miss hanging out with you. I'm excited about this season. I know. Listen, this cast, little sensitive. Oh. So I just want to put it out there that
what happened
when Survivor
did you say something?
Listen, I poked fun about the pillow thing. And I got messages. Like, I poked fun, like, oh, it's funny that and I got messages saying like that wasn't okay. And I just want to say, like, when people are
Rick, let me tell you something, okay?
Yeah.
Anybody, this is what I've learned from absorbing the news and culture over the last couple of years. Anybody who is selling a pillow, that person gets very sensitive about things, okay? If somebody is like, hey, this is my pillow, like that person, sometimes, they could be like a little sensitive.
Yeah. Next, he's going to say that the votes at Tribal were illegitimate. But no, so just to this cast, like, there is a Survivor family and they do love you, but we're all in on the joke. It's all fun. Like, everyone's still looking for that tweet that Carson was talking about. It's like, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, we love you. We're rooting for you. Enjoy.
Yes. We're all friends. It's all it's all fun, and we're that look. The show is all about fun, and we're trying to have fun too.
Exactly. And it's a heck of an experience, and they seem to really be enjoying it. So I hope it stays that way.
We hope so. Okay, Rick, anything that you want to tell people to check out?
So I have something really exciting. I did it a long time ago. I'm a very small part of it, but I'm really excited about it. I can't say what it is, but it's going to be out in like a week or two. Okay. And I just want people to know that my part in this is so small, but what I'm a part of is this really cool thing that you should take a look at.
Really cool thing.
And I'll tell you all about it right after, Rob.
Okay.
Don't worry.
The really cool thing that's coming. That's coming next week,
like within the next 2 weeks, I think. And again, my part in it, not really that cool, but like the thing itself is.
Are you going to be on Succession?
There it is. They have me doing the theme. Yeah.
Are you a Succession guy?
I love Succession.
I love Succession too. Yeah. Yeah.
So good. I hear you're not a Last of Us guy, and I like it, but I spent my whole recap with Wiggler kind of bashing it.
Yeah, I love it for people who that is their thing. It's just like kind of a downer, seems like to me. So I really like the episode. That was the one with Nick Offerman, but that episode was kind of like a different show. So if the one episode that I liked was the episode that was the least like the rest of them, then maybe it's just not for me, and that's okay.
That's 100%.
But I love it. For everybody else that's loving it, I love it for you. I love it for you.
It, but that
Yeah.
was by far the best episode and a totally different show. Yeah.
So,
No
okay. All right. So the great Rick Devens, thank you so much for joining us. Okay. You want to give out any social media?
Hey, I'm back on Instagram after like 3 years.
You got what locked out? You got hacked?
I got hacked. Like it was 2 years ago, over 2 years. And this angel, like 3 different people who worked at Meta tried over the years and failed to get me in. But then this angel reached out. She got me in. I don't want to shout her out because she'd probably be inundated with requests, but I'm super grateful. Not as excited about being back as I thought I would, because I'm like, here's another thing to do. But I love Twitter, Rick_Devens. That's what I am on both. So come hang out.
All right. Rick, thank you so much. Of course, if there's anything that we didn't get to on the podcast, make sure to send in some voicemails. I'll have Liana Boris joining me for the Survivor Feedback Show coming up on Monday. That's at robisawebsite.com/voicemail. And of course, if you hear Rick and I talking about Australian Survivor, all of these international reality shows like the Big Brother Canada, we make it so easy for you to watch all of those shows with us. Go to robisawebsite.com/patron and become a part of our community of reality TV fans around the world, plus so much premium patron content as well at robisawebsite.com/patron. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.